Hello and welcome to News Affairs. In this video, we bring you world's top 10 fighter jets in chronological order with their specifications. Please stay till the end to enhance your knowledge and do not forget to subscribe the channel. The first of the series is NASA United States Air Force X-15 with a speed of Mach 6.72. The North American X-15 is a hypersonic rocket-powered aircraft operated by the United States Air Force and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration as part of the X-Plan series of experimental aircraft. The X-15 set speed and altitude records in the 1960s, crossing the edge of outer space and returning with valuable data used in aircraft and spacecraft design. The X-15's highest speed, 4,520 miles per hour or 7,274 kilometers per hour, was achieved on October 3, 1967, when William J. Knight flew at Mach 6.7 at an altitude of over 1 lakh feet. This set the official world record for the highest speed ever recorded by a crewed-powered aircraft, which remains unbroken. The SR-71 Blackbird with a speed of Mach 3.4. The Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird is a retired long-range, high-altitude Mach 3 Plus strategic reconnaissance aircraft developed and manufactured by the American aerospace company Lockheed Corporation. The SR-71 has several nicknames, including Blackbird and Habu. The SR-71 was developed as a black project from the Lockheed A-12 reconnaissance aircraft during the 1960s by Lockheed's Skunk Works division. In 1989, the United States Air Force retired the SR-71 largely for political reasons. Several were briefly reactivated during the 1990s before their second retirement in 1998. NASA was the final operator of the Blackbird, using it as a research platform. It was retired again in the year 1999. Lockheed VF12 with a speed of Mach 3.2. The Lockheed VF12 was the predecessor and prototype of the SR-71 Blackbird. Development began in the late 1960s, where 3 YF-12s were produced as prototype interceptor aircraft to replace the F-106 Delta Dart interceptor. At the time of development, the United States Air Force were moving funding towards the Vietnam War and other military priorities. Following retirement by the United States Air Force, the YF-12 went on to be a research aircraft for NASA before becoming the basis for the SR-71 that later went into production and served with the US Air Force. Mig31 Foxbat with a Mach 3.2 speed. Still in limited service today, the Mig31 Foxbat is the only aircraft capable of speeds over Mach 3 in use by air forces worldwide. Developed in the 1960s, the Mig-25 quickly became one of the fastest fighter jets ever and has held that record for over 50 years. While more modern variants have been adopted, such as the Mig-31 and Mig-29, the Mig-25 still plays a role as an interceptor and for reconnaissance missions with a few air forces around the world. Almost 1,200 were produced, although production has ended. When the Mig-25 is finally retired, there are currently no other jets capable of Mach 3 or faster in service anywhere in the world. Bell X2 Starbuster with a speed of Mach 3.2. Another rocket wing style aircraft, much like the X-15, the Bell X2 Starbuster was a research aircraft developed in the 1940s and 1950s. The X2's main purpose was to study flight characteristics in the Mach 2 to 3 range, mainly the thermal thicket heating problem which was caused by aerodynamic friction. The Bell X2 was designed to be faster and at altitudes higher than the Bell X1 and succeeded at delivering valuable research. 3 years later, X-15 would go into development and surpass the X2's speed by quite some margin. XB-70 Valkyrie with a speed of Mach 3.02. Developed as a prototype to the planned B-70 nuclear bomber, the North American XB-70 Valkyrie was a supersonic strategic bomber and the only bomber ever to travel at these speeds. Developed in the late 1950s, the XB-70 was capable of cruising at Mach 3 Plus at 70,000 feet or 21,000 meters. At this altitude and these speeds, it was believed the B-70 would be immune to any interceptor aircraft, being too fast for any other aircraft at the time to catch up with it and difficult for radars to see it. However, with the advancement of surface-to-air missiles, the XB-70 developed a weakness. So the United States Air Force started conducting lower-level test flights. But the XB-70 offered little additional performance over the B-52, which it was designed to replace and was subsequently cancelled. Mig31 Fox H with a speed of Mach 2.83. Developed as a replacement for the older but faster Mig-25 Foxbat, the Russian Mig31 Fox H is a supersonic interceptor aircraft developed in the 1970s and still in service today. While the Mig31 could technically reach speeds of Mach 3.2 with risk of engine damage, its limited top speed of Mach 2.83 means the Mig31 is still the second fastest fighter jet in service today and is expected to remain in service for several years to come. While the Mig-25 was faster, it lacked maneuverability and was difficult to fly at lower altitudes. The Mig-31 was developed to be far more agile and easier to fly, albeit slightly slower. F15 Eagle with a speed of Mach 2.5. The McDonnell Douglas F15 Eagle is the fastest multi-role fighter in the world with a top speed of Mach 2.5. Still in service today and adopted by many air forces, the F15 is available in many different variants, including the F15E Strike Eagle and the F15N Sea Eagle to suit various requirements. Introduced in the 1970s, the F-15 continues to be one of the most diverse fighter jets in the world, as well as one of the fastest. During its development, the initial requirement was to reach speeds of Mach 3. However, this was lowered to Mach 2.5 in order to save costs. Subsequently, the F-15 focuses less on speed and altitude and more on air superiority, since the faster a jet can go, the more compromises it has to make elsewhere, such as maneuverability. Currently, the F-15 has over 100 victories and 0 losses in air combat. F11 Walk with a speed of Mach 2.5. Introduced in the late 1960s, the General Dynamics F11 Walk is a supersonic medium-range tactical aircraft used for multiple roles. However, primarily as a fighter bomber or strategic bomber, no longer is serviced today and replaced by the United States Air Force with the F-15E Strike Eagle for the strike missions, and while the supersonic bomber role has now taken up by the B-1B Lancer. The F11 was the first jet to use many technologies, including variable sweep wings and afterburning turbofan engines. Su27 Flanker with a speed of Mach 2.35. With a top speed of Mach 2.35, the SCOI Su27 Flanker rounds off our top 10 fastest jets ever produced. Still in service today after being introduced in the 1980s, the Su27 is designed as a direct competitor to the retired F-14 Tomcat and the F-15 Eagle as a super maneuverable fighter jet. There are many related developments of the Su-27, including the Su-30, Su-33 and Su-34, while the Shangyan J-11 is a Chinese license-built version of the Su-27. Much like the United States Air Force, the Soviet Union favored maneuverability over sheer speed and altitude when developing the Su-27 in response to the F-15. We hope that the video was informative. Please do like and share this video. Jai Hind.